Okay, Council, we will call our regular meeting of Council to order. And before we get to approval of our agenda, just wanted to take a moment to read some introductory remarks. So I want to take this opportunity to address the public on behalf of Council around the Kingsway Hotel and questions related to renovations conducted in that space. As elected officials, we are responsible for making decisions that affect the daily lives of residents, families, the business community, and many others. We take this responsibility very seriously. In certain circumstances, decisions and/or actions of Council are made which may result in questions from the public. When questions arise, we recognize that it is Council's responsibility to respond. Council would like to take the time today to thank the members of the public who continued to bring their concerns forward on this issue. Learning a great deal from this experience, Council is beginning to explore a Council code of conduct and more clear policy around how Council and staff respond to community concerns. As an organization, the City is constantly looking for ways to improve our engagement and processes, and we thank the members of the public for holding us accountable as we continue this work. Thank you. Council, we have an agenda in front of us today. Would somebody like to, are there any late items to add from staff?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, we have 5 pieces of correspondence that are all associated with the development variance permit number 110. So if we could add those 5, item F12, and you should have copies of those 5 pieces in front of you. Okay.
Thank you. Okay. And any late items to add from councillors? Seeing none, and we will recognize that we're holding our meetings on the unceded territories of the Hoopachesit and Sishot First Nations. And would somebody like to move approval of our agenda as amended?
Approval as amended.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Poon. Seconded by Councillor Solda. Seeing no comments, all in favor? Carried. Okay, on to minutes. We have minutes from the special meeting held at 9:30 a.m., the regular meeting of Council held at 2 p.m. on February 14th, 2022, and special meetings held at 2 p.m. on February 15th, 2022, and at 3 p.m. on February 22nd, 2022.
Motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt by Councillor Poon, seconded by Councillor Solda. Seeing no comments on the minutes.
Pre-voting.
Oh, all in favor? Carried, thank you. We will move on now to public input period, which is an opportunity for members of the public to ask questions of Council. Come on forward if you don't mind coming. You do have to keep your mask on if you don't mind. And if you could just come to the microphone and state your name and address.
Dusty Miller, 112 5700 Pierce Road. I sent a letter to Council a couple of weeks ago recommending for an Outstanding Citizen Award for Kathy Krasnarek. That's the way you pronounce it, by the way. I highly recommend to the Mayor and Council of Port Alberni to formally recognize the former owner of the Little Bavaria restaurant, Kathy Krasnarek, on her retirement for her outstanding contribution and support to our community. It's my understanding, in a discussion with your Deputy City Clerk, that there is presently no method for the Mayor and Council to recognize the efforts and contributions of some of our most outstanding citizens. I would recommend that some form of frameable certificate be developed, just to show appreciation to the people, rather than just a Citizen of the Year, maybe for some of those folks that really do us well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that is an excellent suggestion, and we do have your letter included in correspondence for information, so we'll have an opportunity to talk more about it then.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Thank you. Would other members of the public like to come forward today, the public input period? Okay, seeing none. We will move on to our delegations today, and our only delegation today is from the Twinning Society. We have Dave Grant and Lori Money in attendance.
That's what I did the other time, too. I didn't step on it. Tim got it out of the way first. Madam Mayor, I'm Dave Grant. This is Lori Money. We are both members of the Port Alberni Twinning Society. And thank you for the opportunity to meet with you again today. Today we have some items to present to you for the 35-year commemoration of the sister city relationship between Port Alberni and Alberni. These items could be classified as two things, something old and something new. And if you've been married before, you know what that means. So the old stuff goes back to the beginning of the sister city relationship. We have here in the chair, I hesitate to bring them up because they are very, very heavy, a collection of a number of things that were put downstairs when you had the renovations, and along with them and some other things, and the gifts from Abishiri, and the affirmation and reaffirmation plaques got put into our possession for a number of years, and we became custodians of them. As custodians, last time we were here, we gave back the appropriate owner, which is the city of Port Alberni, the affirmation documents. And today we'd like to give you this other old stuff. Very simply, the top one, the big green one, that is a collection of newspaper articles that go from 1986 to 1991. I don't know who did it, or who collaborated with it. They do a sensational job, and it's worth reading if you got lots of time. The other three are photo albums that were taken at the inauguration of our sister city relationship, pictures that were taken with Abishiri, pictures of people of our council and of our city that were taken, and we'd like to present to city those items as part of the commemoration. We also have a recommendation too. As owners of the documents, as owners of these, we would like to suggest that an amalgamation of the documents, these items, and the gifts from Abishiri be presented to the Alberni Museum, and that they could hand on to them, they can archive them, whatever they want to do. And we suggest that maybe the museum take a look at the possibility of amalgamating them in some kind of a display, which will be a permanent display at the museum. We think it would be a good idea, but there for people to look at, and at the same time to be valuable for everybody that's there. So those now belong to you, and you need someone who's very strong, like maybe Ron. He can carry them out and bring them up to the front. Well, you can share the half of them if you want. The other thing we have is, you remember these, I mentioned them before. We now have a number of them that were sent to us from Abishiri. And how do I work this? Just push the button?
Oh, I'll scroll down for you.
That's all I want. Okay, I just need this part. Okay. Yeah. And we would like to present a copy of one of these to all the council members. And Lori would come forward, and Madam Mayor, get them to you, and possibly you could just distribute them to the other members, plus the ones that aren't here. And once you get them and open them, I'll just address a couple of things that are in there. Madam Mayor got the previous copy because we had the fortune of when you had Proclamation Week to invite in past mayors to come, and we had a delegation of 4, 5 and 6, including Laura and I, to have the honor of giving these to the mayor, past mayors, and for the displays that were in the outside and in here. We'd also like to give a lot of thanks to Sarah Darling, who assembled all the things we needed for the proclamation. Now, for your information, this was all done by the city of Abishiri, led by Shinko Sunura, the Abishiri Twinning Society, the Abishiri Fan Club put this all together over a period of about a year. They assembled it, they produced it, they copied it, they printed it, and they sent it to Port Alberni at no cost to the city of Port Alberni. And there's a conglomeration of items from 1985 to 2019 at the back. And in those all ensuing years, each year has some kind of an activity, usually homestays for students or students going to Japan. And don't have enough of these to unfortunately give to all of the residents of Port Alberni. But over the years, there's been at least 600 families in Port Alberni associated with what would be in this document. And they might want to have a look at it. And with the assistance of the city and Abashiri, this is on a video. And along with it, it's three parts of the video. The video is on this. There's a video of the display that Abashiri did in December as Port Alberni Day. And there's also another part in the video which shows the Abashiri Garden Committee putting together the Alberni commemorative flag. I would like to suggest that the council send a letter to Shinko, thanking her for all the hard work on this. She's the organizer of it. She did it. She works for the city of Port Alberni. She's been involved with this almost as long as I have. And anything that happens with Abashiri, through Abashiri, goes through Shinko. Of course, like everything else, it has to go through the council too. Hang on that one, please. Yeah. So we just let the city people know that if they want to see that, and take a look at the year, see if they can find their child who's in it, or if it's members of the council, maybe you were in some too, and you want to find what particular year you were in. We had the hockey, we had the gym clubs, we had some other in there, probably mentioned in there somewhere too. The other thing is that when we met in the beginning with Mayor Minion and Tim Ply, we first brought this attention to the city about the 35th anniversary and commemoration. And we had a good talk, and we talked to some of the things, and we put forward a number of proposals. And many of those proposals have been met, which I'll come to in a couple of minutes. But one of the proposals that was met was for us, given us the task of designing a plaque. And if I remember the words, it was to be simple, it was to be symbolic, and because it's a budget year, it shouldn't be too expensive. We had a lot of input with Natasha at Billy Beauty, a new graphics place in town. I met with her a number of times coming up with ideas. She designed, redesigned it, did different things for it. And we would like to, at this time, and have the mayor come forward, we'd like to present this plaque to the city of Port Alberni. And you have a copy of this on the screen? Here it is in the bottom, just so you can see. Yeah, you're welcome. We enjoy doing it. So our committee is happy and pleased with the initial proposal. We met with the agreement to explore and complete them, such as congratulations to Ber Mitsutani in Abashiri, proclamation of Abashiri Week, which was done in February. And incidentally, Abashiri noted the timing of the Abashiri Week was fitted perfectly in because it was at that time 35, 36 years ago that the original documents were signed, and they just felt that was just great for them. There are some other proposals that left. There are two proposals left that we haven't done yet, but we'd like the cities to follow through on them. One is, and they go together actually, one is the relocation of the Sister City sign, which is presently up at the junction, and the other one is the building and construction of an Abashiri garden, both of which could go down at Harbor Key. And if the city decides to proceed with that, then we would be available to have some input and help out in whatever we possibly could do. So in conclusion, on behalf of the city of Abashiri, the Abashiri Twinning Society, the Port Alberni Sister City Society, we extend a great thank you to you, the City of Port Alberni Council, for its effort, support, and contribution to these 35 years of friendship. Thank you.
Thank you very much to both of you. And thank you for the lovely plaque. We really appreciate you taking the time to develop that and look forward to hanging it proudly. But really just want to thank the two of you for, and Sherry, I know has been a huge part of it as well, for the work that you've done to continue this. It's wonderful to have all of the art and newspaper clippings and everything back, and I think getting those to the museum is a great idea, to have a bit of a display there. I know I even have the display in my office of some of the gifts that have been given to us over time right now, and everyone who's come into my office over the last few weeks has stopped to look at those and really appreciate some of the very unique gifts that the city of Abashiri has given us here. So really appreciate the work you've put in, and looking forward to hopefully getting a display set up at some point at the museum and continuing this friendship for a long time.
Thank you very much. You look good in the happy coat.
Thank you. Okay, we will move on to unfinished business. Item number 1, from the Director of Finance, we have the City of Port Alberni 2022 to 2026 Financial Plan Bylaw 5045, 2022.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So, as a follow-up to our Committee of the Whole meeting last week, we identified some COVID funding. We talked also about some surplus to bring forward, and also the possibility that we might be able to use some of the surplus from 2021 to adjust some of the capital funding for some projects. So at this time, the financial plan has a 4.97% increase over 2021, and there is a recommendation to lower that to 3.96%. With the COVID Restart Grant, the provincial government provided this grant to the city and other municipalities in BC to support some of the restarts that needed to happen to support some revenues, some revenue shortfalls, some operational costs, and we have to complete the expenditure of these funds and have them assigned, if unexpended, for 2022. So within the staff report, we have the listing, and I briefly went over some of these items at the Committee of the Whole, but here's the detail to assign the remaining $2.24 million as of remaining as of the start of 2021 for both 2021 and 2022. So I'll start at the top with the listing, the Parks and Rec revenue. Revenue that we had in the plan but we did not realize with our facilities, and that was $318,000. Parks and Rec revenue for programs, and that was about $130,000. Gaming revenue, the $231,000 that was not received based on what we had in the plan. Committee room connectivity, we have some committee room work that is undertaken. We purchased some of those items in 2021 but haven't yet installed those. Our Zoom licensing, some Tempest upgrades as far as our softwares to support online functioning, direct costs associated with the COVID activities, and those are directly linked to activities that we did throughout the year, and we have a project number specifically for that. That was $122,000. The RCMP administration over expenditures between 2020 and 2021, we're assigning $300,000 for that. Parks and Rec revenue reductions. So if we look back over the years 2020 to 2022, we've reduced the revenues in Parks and Rec significantly. If we tally up those years and how much we've reduced the revenues based on what we had in the 2019 plan, it's coming just under $2 million in total. So there's a significant drop in revenue with our Parks and Rec section as far as revenue. So it really is the largest revenue reduction that we've seen due to COVID. And then we have $500,000 assigned in the financial plan for 2022 to mitigate some of the tax implications from Parks and Recreation without increasing the burden on the public. So That's supporting our 2022 anticipated shortfall. We also have some more Tempest upgrades, and this will allow for electronic upgrades for e-commerce, e-apply, and mobile support. So our bylaws forces can go out there and have mobile support as far as accessing the information they need to do their work. Also, with the GIS software and training, we are lagging behind other municipalities for that interconnectivity with the public as far as understanding some of the infrastructure, some of the things that they need to know as far as property in the city. So with this GIS, this will support not only staff, but it will support the public in understanding and receiving information that they can do on a self-service method without coming into City Hall. We also have fire hall ventilation that has been identified to improve the sleeping quarters. And of course, what was approved in the last regular council meeting was the audiovisual upgrade for council chambers. Also, we have projects that we identified for a carry forward surplus, and I realized this morning that the video monitoring program that we had, the support to purchase video equipment with the residents and businesses, wasn't included in this carry forward, and I believe that council would like to see this program go ahead, and we didn't undertake that in 2021. But there's some program changes that we need to make, but if we could carry that forward for 2022, we can add another $25,000 to this carry forward surplus item. So the official community plan is one that we have $150,000 budgeted for over the past 2 years. We're looking to carry forward whatever is remaining unspent from that number. We have the parks plan, which was included in the Parks and Rec administration. Just in working on the OCP, we wanted to ensure there was some funding to support review of our parks and what needed to be, like just an understanding of our parks and have that coincide with the official community plan. So we had $30,000 there. Trees that weren't planted, a strategic priority of council. There's $75,000, and that was committed in the budget year after year. Moving forward, that will be in the capital plan, and no need to bring it forward as a carry forward surplus, but we will need to do that because that was included in the operational component of the financial plan. I discussed the facilities review, and we're assigning $50,000 to do an inventory and create a renewal plan for our facilities. That is something that will support the capital expenditures, renewal, and ongoing plans for our facilities into the future. Also with the bridge and repairs and maintenance that was not undertaken in 2021 due to contractor being unable to complete that. There's $55,000 that Public Works is assigned to that. We have some consulting fees for economic development, $22,000. And then after discussion at the Committee of the Whole, reached out to the Manager of Operations, understanding that we could carry forward possibly some money to undertake some line painting in 2022 over and above what we normally would, and assigned $100,000 for that. So as I mentioned, there's that $25,000 we would add for the security camera program that we would undertake in 2022, and the $482,000 for carry forward surplus items. And also prior year surplus, assigning $250,000 to bring down the cost of, or not bring down the cost necessarily, but to amend the financial plan to reduce the tax implications of 2 capital projects that we've identified, and these are both strategic priorities of council. So that is there, and council may choose to do it differently, but that's the recommendation that staff are bringing forward. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Councillor Poon.
Thank you. May have missed this, but is there a table showing the already spent funds for the?
Do you mean all the already spent funds,
Yeah,
or
all the already spent
like,
funds.
so you mean the actuals for the year?
Yeah.
So I don't think we have actuals yet.
Oh,
It's
okay.
too early.
Ah.
Andrew?
Madam Mayor, so we do have the actuals in the financial plan and the capital plan that we have for council, and that was in the last Committee of the Whole agenda, and that just gave us the detail. These are unaudited numbers.
Yeah.
We are still doing the year-end reconciliations. There's some amendments that we'll make, but essentially all the expenses are in. They might not just be landing where they should, and we'll clean that up and get that off to the auditor so that we have the audited financial statements. But it is in the financial plan from the last committee of the whole meeting on the 22nd. There's that detail within.
Thank you. It won't come in a table though, because it's for every line of the budget. Other questions, comments? Councillor Solda.
I just need to understand this. So to bring the budget down, all this that's been presented to us are to put them on hold, is that, and then it would bring the budget down? Am I misunderstanding that?
Yeah, those are projects that Andrew has identified in the next table. Twyla, if you're able to scroll down, those carry forwards are projects that have been funded previously, are still going to be done, and so those are not going into the general surplus because those projects are staying. We're moving forward with those projects. They're not being removed, they're being kept in.
Okay, so what are we proposing to take to bring the budget down? What is the proposal? Where are we getting the money from?
Andrew, could
Okay.
you speak to the surplus?
Sorry, I just need to be
No,
clear.
that's great.
Certainly. So if we look at the recommendation, item number 3, instead of having the allocation of $250,000 from taxation in 2022, we would use $250,000 of surplus from 2021 to fund the Connect the Keys project that was originally in taxation, and $50,000 of tree planting, which was taxation in 2022 from the prior year surplus. So it'd still remain with the $50,000 for carry forward surplus, $25,000 from taxation for 2022 for tree planting.
So those two projects would be put on hold?
No.
They-
They're still going to move forward.
Okay.
This is just funding it from surplus instead of funding it from new tax revenues.
Okay, got it. Okay, thank you.
So it's just using the surplus to bring down this year's tax impact. Andrew, could you clarify how much the surplus was?
Well,
Unaudited?
we're confident that we have around, I'm not going to say, but $250,000 of surplus could be used. And, you know, if we're $500,000 or $750,000 in that range for surplus that's not allocated, because we are bringing for some surplus that's allocated here, just over $500,000. If we add that $225,000, it would just, we have the ability to rather than tax this year, we could use that $250,000 from surplus.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Corbeil.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just so I'm clear, so a lot of the surplus was project work that didn't get done and will get done this year. Am I correct?
Well, Madam Mayor, I think, you know, if we look at the capital project, those funds are set aside. This is from operational. Like, this is our operating surplus, so it's revenue that we have higher than expected in some line items, and expenses lower on some line items. In total, when we bring everything together, there's between $500,000 and $750,000 of surplus that we anticipate for 2021, and then we're using some of that funding from surplus for those appropriated projects, if council concurs, or the $500,000 or $250,000 for the capital reduction due to taxation for that surplus.
So this is unallocated surplus, as opposed to there was a surplus of over $2 million from paving last year. Am I off on the wrong tangent here?
I think there's a few different categories of surplus that council is not completely clear on. So, and it would probably be helpful to have a report with these numbers. But for today's discussion, there's absolutely projects that are being carried forward, capital projects that haven't been done. We see those in the financial plan that's been presented to us. That is not being taken into this conversation around surplus, because those projects are still, the funding is there, the projects are still identified, they're just yet to be completed. Then, if I'm clear, Andrew, we have between $500,000 and $750,000 of surplus, number yet to be determined exactly. That $482,000 of carry forward operational expenditures is additional to that.
Yes, sorry if I wasn't clear on that point.
No,
but,
that's fine. So there is $482,000 of operational expenditures that have been outlined in that chart, table 2. Those are projects that we are moving forward with. That $482,000 is not being taken into consideration as surplus because those projects are still going to be completed and worked on. So Councillor Solda, the projects you thought at first were going to be canceled, no, those are projects that are still being carried forward, worked on. There's that 482,000. Additional to that, there's between 500 and 750,000 of actual surplus that is not committed to any project right now that we are considering today. Would we like to take 250,000 of that and commit it to the projects listed below, Connect the Keys and tree planting? Please correct me if I'm explaining anything wrong, Andrew.
Madam Mayor, you hit it, yeah, exactly as I tried
Thank
to
you.
intend anyways.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Okay, Councillor Solda?
So another question here. So to bring the taxes down, the money that we're using, the operational expenditures, right? What would we have normally done with the money? Would it have gone into a general fund if it was a surplus? So we're just going to use that instead of putting it into a general fund. We're going to use it to help with the taxes, which is fine with me. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Madam Mayor, that's a good question from Councillor Solda. Exactly, we would take that fund and put it into the general reserve. So not to a specific capital reserve, but just the general reserve. That allows council to use those funds as they need to for capital projects, but identifying an option for council today to use that fund to reduce the taxation for 2022.
Well, it's time to let's help the people. So I think it's a great thing, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Other comments? Okay, thank you very much for this explanation today, Andrew. Councillor Solda, would you like to read that motion?
Madam Mayor, I move that the council amend the City of Port Alberni 2022-2026 financial plan bylaw number 5045-2022 as follows. 1, allocate the remaining $2,241,022 COVID-19 restart funding as outlined in Table 1, finalization of COVID-19 restart funding of this report. Do you want them separate? Okay, number 2, allocate $482,000 of surplus from 2021 for the carry forward of operational expenditures as outlined in Table 2, 2022 carry forward surplus of this report. 3, allocate $250,000 of surplus from 2021 as follows. A, $200,000 to the Connect of the Keys Pathway Project. B, $50,000 to tree planting in 2022 capital plan and thereby reducing general taxation in the amount of $250,000.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second, Madam Mayor.
Seconded by Councillor Corbeil. Any final comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, and on to item number 2, 5-year financial plan Q&A summary.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So looking at the Q&A summary within the agenda, we've added the responses that we could undertake for February 22nd, the Committee of the Whole meeting. So if we move down to there, we started populating that. Some of them need to be completed, and we're working on that. But if there's anything that council would like to pull out, or if they like any other questions to be asked, please feel free to add that to the listing.
Thank you. Are there any questions or clarification items on what's been added to this document? Okay, seeing none, are there any new questions to add at this point? Okay, seeing none, then I think this is just being received for information today. Thank you. Really appreciate, and I've heard from quite a few members of the public as well, how helpful seeing this one kind of combined all budget questions has been. So thank you to staff for getting us this information regularly. Okay, Then we will move on to item number 3, old growth deferral. We have a copy of the letter addressed to the Ministry of Forest, Lands, Natural Resources and Operations and Rural Development, requesting the opportunity to collaborate with the province on the old growth deferral strategy process. So a copy of the letter is attached. Are there questions or comments on the letter? Councillor Corbeil.
Well, a comment, that ministry doesn't exist anymore. So,
Sort of does.
Sort of does. But as probably most people know, Minister Osborne is now the Minister of what's called Ministry of Land, Water and Resource Stewardship. I'm not sure whether or not the letter should go to her or to Minister Conroy, but I'll leave that up to staff to figure out the actual ministry name and where it should go. But I am happy to see that at least we're trying to get our foot in the door and have some input into what's happening with the old growth deferral. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think that we would naturally CC it to our MLA anyways, anytime we're communicating with the provincial government. So we will certainly send it to Minister Osborne as in her new ministry role as additionally. And I just wanted to add that this letter is just a formality additional to, conversations that continue to be ongoing with the provincial government around this issue. So while it is nice to, be on record asking to be a part of the process, it's just a small piece of the advocating that we're doing. Okay, item number 1 then, we'll move on to staff reports. Item number 1 is accounts, and we have Councillor Paulson today.
Yes, I'd like to move that the certification of the Director of Finance dated February 28, 2022 be received and checks numbered 150031 to 150114 inclusive in payment of accounts totaling $1,070,070.06 be approved.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Solda. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, item number 2 from our development planner. We have development variance permit number 110 for 4841 Redford Street.
Good afternoon. Just gonna wait for this to load. All right, so today we'll be looking at a development variance permit for 4841 Redford Street. This is the former Redford school site. The application is an unconventional one because it's rather simple intuitively, but complicated by procedure. So I'll go through it all and then summarize the important parts at the end. So on the plan in front of you, you'll see a couple different notations. Currently, the north lot is Lot A, and the lot abutting Redford Street is Lot B. The applicant is proposing to develop multifamily residential units on what is currently a vacant Lot A. To accommodate this development, the applicant has submitted a subdivision application to relocate the interior lot line, between Lot A and Lot B, 11 meters to the south. So that's from the top hashed line to the bottom solid line. So once the subdivision has been approved to relocate the lot line, the lots will be re-registered as Lot 1, the northerly lot replacing Lot A, and Lot 2, the southerly lot replacing Lot B. So moving forward, I'll just refer to the current Lot A as future Lot 1 and Lot B as future Lot 2. So the proposed subdivision is what has triggered the need for the development variance permit. The lot line relocation produces a different location for the front, side, and rear yards. The front yard, as defined by the zoning bylaw, shifts from the south boundary along Redford Street, so that's the map to the left, to the west boundary along 4th Avenue on the right. as future lot 2 is fully developed with existing buildings that date back to the 1970s or earlier. The change in front yard creates a scenario where an existing building encroaches into the new front yard setback. Also, the two side yards shift from the lot lines abutting 4th Avenue and 5th Avenue to the interior lot line and the boundary adjacent to Redford Street. The side yard along the interior lot line will be 4.3 meters deep, and the side yard along Redford Street will be 9.2 meters deep. The lot line relocation doesn't result in encroachments in the new side yards or the new rear yard, but the development fails to meet the developments on this lot fail to meet the conditions of use requirement in the P1 zone, institutional zone, that the total of both side yards equal at least 20% of the lot width. Instead of the required 13.92 meters, it's the total of the two side yards is just 13.5. So back to the subdivision, the approving officer can't approve a subdivision, in this case a lot line reduction or relocation, that causes the lot to become not compliant with the zoning bylaw. A development variance permit would be required to make these encroachments legal and thus allow the approving officer to handle the subdivision portion. Today, council will be considering the variance portion of the application. The rest of the project, which will take place on future lot 1, will be brought back to council at a later date. These will include an OCP and zoning bylaw amendment, along with a development permit. So the community will have more opportunities to provide comments and feedbacks during these stages. The subject site is currently zoned P1 institutional, and no further zoning bylaw amendments are required for future lot 2. And staff supports the approval and issuance of the development variance permit. The existing buildings make compliance with the setback requirements unachievable with the current configuration, and we do not anticipate any negative impacts as a result of these variances. Nothing on future lot 2 is proposed to change from what currently exists. So to summarize, the applicants would like more space on the north lot to accommodate multi-family development. The subdivision application will be submitted to push the lot boundary south, but that shifts the location of the front, side, and rear yards of future lot 2. The shift results in setback encroachments and stops the approving officer from being able to approve the subdivision, and a variance is needed to allow the encroachments into the required setbacks before the approving officer can approve the subdivision. In your agenda package, you'll find the recommended motions along with the other options available to council, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. We will do council questions, and then before we make the motions, we will hear on the correspondence. Are there questions from council on this? Councillor Corbeil.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm a little bit confused here. It's like a block-long piece of property. Why do we need to have a variance of 4.5 meters? I don't understand. Does that open the door to more buildings, or?
So my understanding, this is, I guess, two parts. The variance is to do with what's currently on that south site, right? So the variance isn't for anything that's going on to future lot 1. It's just dealing with how close the buildings are or the setbacks on future lot 2. And the reason for the lot line relocation is so that they can, I guess, maximize the amount of space that they have on future lot 1 for future development. We're still waiting to receive the final plans from the applicants, but right now we're just looking at the setbacks on future lot 2 and how that relates to the current buildings on site. I don't know if that answers the question.
Well, not entirely. Like, as I say, it's a very big property. I don't understand what 4 meters means. Like, why is that necessary?
Scott?
I can try from the subdivision point of view. So it is a bit odd and bureaucratic, but they are requesting to, enlarge the site where a potential OCP and rezoning application will have to be considered. When they are moving the lot line south, they're changing, like currently that parcel to the south, the legal frontage is considered Redford Street. And that's, our zoning bylaw considers that. By changing the lot size, the zoning bylaw now considers the legal frontage onto 4th Avenue. And the existing buildings that are there were perfectly fine where they were, but because the subdivision would trigger the change of what is considered frontage, those buildings can't meet that, what will be now considered the front yard setback. The approving officer cannot approve a subdivision that creates that non-conforming setback issue. That's why council is being asked to consider a variance to, so the buildings aren't gonna change, that is, but it's technically, the setback shifts from a side yard to a front yard that then puts those buildings along 4th Avenue that they can't meet that setback, and the approving officer can't permit that unless council considers and approves a variance to reduce that setback. So I'm not sure if that explains it any better, but that's why council's being asked to consider this.
If I could, Madam Mayor, well, that explains it, but I don't understand why we're moving the front to the side.
Well,
Okay.
it's the subdivision that's moving it as technically the way our bylaw reads it. So when you have a property that's multi-fronted on multiple streets, the shortest of those dimensions is considered the front yard. So if you're on a corner lot, or in this case, got 3 lots, the shortest of those dimensions is legally considered the front yard based by our zoning bylaw. So what it currently sits at, Redford Street is that dimension. When that property gets moved further to the south, all of a sudden 4th Avenue becomes technically considered the front yard by our zoning bylaw because it's now a lesser dimension than Redford Street. It is a very bureaucratic issue that this subdivision is being triggered, but the approving officer is prohibited from approving a subdivision that creates this situation unless council, under their scenario, were to consider granting a variance.
I guess a follow-up question for me is, are we anticipating needing to consider variances on the actual development on future lot 1 as well?
So that information is forthcoming, right? That'll be part of the next stage of their application. This is basically the land assembly portion where they're trying to get everything set so that they can plan what they're going to do on future lot 1. But at the moment, we can't really say.
And there will be a full public process, as the planner indicated. There's an OCP and zoning amendment that on the vacant portion of the property that will be required to. So there'll be a full public process with development plans that both the public will have an opportunity to comment in depth, and that will have to come through both our advisory planning commission and council.
Thank you. Other questions? Okay. Could we have an overview of the correspondence received?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. So there are 5 late submissions. 4 of the 5 are the exact same letter and just signed by different property owners. So just to capture the gist of it, as residents, we are not opposed to future development on Lot A. However, we are responsible to ensure that any development will complement our neighborhood. At this time, we cannot in good conscience support approval of the variance permit for Lot B, as we suspect this will significantly impact the scope of allowable development on Lot A. And then the fifth piece of correspondence from Sherilyn Tucson, again a property owner in the area, is expressing opposition as well, essentially the same reasons.
Thank you. Okay, any follow-up questions as a result of that correspondence? Twyla, would you like us to formally receive the late correspondence?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, would somebody like to make a motion to receive
Second.
5 pieces of late correspondence, moved by Councillor Solda, seconded by Councillor Poon? All in favor? Carried. And Councillor Paulson, would you like to read the motions or consider other options?
I'd like to move that council authorize the issuance of development variance permit number 110, and that the Director of Corporate Services be authorized to sign the permit granting the following variances to the zoning bylaw at 4841 Redford Street. A, vary section 5.31.2 site development regulations to permit a reduction of the required front yard setback of 4841 Redford Street along 4th Avenue from 7.5 meters to 3.2 meters, a variance of 4.3 meters. And B, vary section 5.31.3 conditions of use to permit a reduction of the total of both side yards of 4841 Redford Street from 20% to 19.4% of the proposed lot width.
Thank
Second.
you. Seconded by Councillor Poon. Any final comments or questions? Councillor Paulson.
Just a comment in deference to the letters that were received, and I understand the concerns from constituents, and just the motion is really the very start of a longer process, and certainly constituents' concerns will be heard through the public process, as the acting CAO mentioned. Just want to reiterate that this doesn't set anything in stone. It just gets things in order and moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no more questions or comments on the motion, all in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, carried. And we'll move on to item number 3 from the Manager of Facilities. We have award of RFP 024-21, Public Safety Building Renovations.
Thank you, and greetings, Madam Mayor and Council. The purchasing policy requires that Council must approve award of proposals over $75,000 in value. Staff recommend that Council for the City of Port Alberni award proposal 024-21, renovations to the Public Safety Building, to Copcan Construction for $631,480 plus applicable taxes, with $400,000 coming from the emergency reserve. And with that, I welcome any comments or questions.
Thank you very much. Are there questions or comments? Councillor Solda.
I think the public's going to ask us why we're needing more money. So I think it's important for the public to hear why, and so maybe we can get an explanation so the public can hear that, Madam Mayor.
Absolutely. Scott?
So the city did put out RFP for bids on this project and received three prices. All of those prices were over what we had hoped the construction costs would come into. Staff did identify, and went back and looked at it, identified some portions of the projects that the scope could be changed, and had discussions with the low bidder of that, and found about $100,000 worth of savings. And that's what is in front of council for your consideration. I hate to say it's a sign of the times or whatever, but we are finding construction costs and other items coming in higher than what any of us, I think, had hoped for or expected. We know this is a strategic priority of council to have this work done. That's why this is brought forward. I think staff have done as much as they can to bring the price of this project down, but at this time, that is what the costs are coming in at, and we, like I said, we did receive 3 bids, all within a relative framework, so I think that's why council's being asked to consider this.
Thank you very much. Other questions? Scott, I know that we are short on space in City Hall right now and relying on this project to help us with some of that congestion in the basement, specifically at City Hall. If council approves this, what is the timeline for this project?
I would maybe ask Rob if he has a time.
We're looking at probably around June or July.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Poon.
How likely are we going to be on budget if we go ahead with this?
Rob?
We will continue to make wise decisions and be fiscally responsible. I don't know in the changing landscape of the world what other cost escalations will happen, but we are determined to come in at the budget price.
But this is a project that's been estimated by the contractor, and this is the amount that council is authorizing us to award.
Thank you. Councillor Solda.
Just a quick question. The contractor is?
Copcan Construction out of Nanaimo.
Okay, nobody local, did they apply? I can't remember.
We had one local contractor attend the site visit, but they did not proceed with a bid.
They didn't go ahead in a bid. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no more questions, Councillor Poon, would you like to read the motion?
Yes. I'll move that council amend the City of Port Alberni 2022 to 2026 financial plan bylaw number 5045-2022 to increase the capital plan for the public safety building by $400,000 coming from the emergency reserve.
Thank you. Is there a seconder?
No.
We'll do them separately. Seconded by
Okay.
Councillor Solda. Any comments on that motion? Seeing none on the motion, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. And you can continue with the next one.
Yes, I'll move that council for City of Port Alberni award proposal number 024-21, City of Port Alberni Public Safety Building renovations to Copcan Construction in the amount of $631,480 plus applicable taxes, with funding coming from the emergency reserve.
Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Solda. Any final comments? Seeing none on the motion, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. And thank you very much, Rob, for the report. And item number 4 on our agenda from the Acting CAO and Director of Development Services, award of construction manager service for the Child Care Center at 3045 8th Avenue.
So the city continues to work on the final, getting forward with the new childcare center up on 8th Avenue. The city was successful in receiving a grant for this work. As part of this, construction management professional fees were included in our cost estimates to do this work. The city did put an RFP out for this work, received 3 proposals, and we are supporting the award of the and we evaluated those proposals based on the the criteria in the RFP, including the fees proposal terms, clarity of the presentation and proposal, the project team's qualifications, references, and we are supporting MKM Projects be awarded this project. And I'd be pleased to answer any questions of council.
Thank you. Questions from council? Councillor Paulson.
Just maybe a slight comment on what I view as a positive conversation with the province with regards to additional costs to this, and that I don't think there was, it was in the report.
I think it was.
I thought I read it in the report. Maybe not.
Maybe not.
I take it back. Maybe it was another project, but, okay, thanks.
Thank you. Scott, are you able to comment on where this falls within the budget of what was budgeted for this piece of the project?
I mean, it is below the Class A cost estimate that we had for these, and I'm always reluctant to rely on my memory, but I will give it a try. I think the Class A cost estimate had accounted for about $450,000 for this work, and it is going to be well underneath that.
Great. It's a great starting point on the project, and I think just important for the public to be aware that this grant from the province of $2.9 million was intended to be 100% funding of the project. So this is a piece of that and being funded through those grant dollars for this project. And of course, for anyone who followed the provincial budget announcement that came out last week, it was heavily focused around childcare and supporting not just the creation of spaces, but training of childcare workers and a lot of new investments around childcare. So moving in the right direction with this for sure. Councillor Solda, would you like to read this motion?
Okay. Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that the Council for the City of Port Alberni award request for proposal 023-21, Construction Manager Childcare Center to MKM Projects Limited for a fixed fee of $39,000 plus a variable fee of 6.66% of the construction costs. Construction costs based on Class A estimate and 6.66% administration charge on reimbursable expense plus applicable taxes.
Second, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Moved by Councillor Solda, seconded by Councillor Corbeil. Any final comments? Seeing none on the motion. Carried. Thank you. None opposed. And on to bylaws. Item number 1 from the development planner, we have proposed official community plan bylaw and zoning bylaw amendments for 4835 and 4825 Bird Street, as well as 3618 and 3614 Fifth Avenue. Welcome.
Great, thank you, Madam Mayor. As you mentioned, today for Council's consideration, we have OCP and zoning bylaw amendments at 4835 and 4825 Bird Street and 6314 and 3618 Fifth Avenue, and this is for a development at the intersection of these streets. Here's a map showing the location of the proposed project. It's at the corner of 5th and Bird. You can see there's 2 properties to the north and the 2 properties to the south, and the laneway that runs between them as well. To summarize the application, they are requesting OCP land use amendments to create multifamily lands at the properties on Bird Street, the 2 properties, and then they're looking for a zoning bylaw amendment to create a new comprehensive development zone on all 4 properties. This application would also add a definition for residential rental tenure to the zoning bylaw. And here's a concept provided by their designer. You can see there's 2 apartment buildings. There would be 1 on each parcel with a laneway in between. Those buildings would be 3 stories for a total of 40 units, 10 1-bedroom units and 30 bachelor units, and in total 4 accessible units. This unit type is considered affordable housing in such that it's typically occupies the lower end of the rental housing market. And these units, through the zoning, are being proposed as rental only as well. And here's a look at the site. You can see the 2 properties again, outlined in a dashed colored line. The property to the north is currently designated multifamily residential in the OCP, and the one to the south is currently designated general commercial. Now this application would see the property to the south changed to multifamily residential to match the property to the north. In terms of the zoning bylaw, the property to the north is currently zoned RM2, medium density multifamily residential, and the one to the south is designated C3, service commercial. And this application would make them both a new zone, which we would create with this application, currently called CD3, and it's for a comprehensive multifamily residential infill development. And we'll go through that as we get through this presentation. And of course, this application, as I meant, it would also designate both properties as being within the multifamily development permit area, and again, add that definition for residential rental tenure. And this definition is required because we don't currently define what is rental housing in our zoning bylaw, and this would allow us to actually define it as it relates to this application. And the city's fairly recently granted powers to control and plan for rental housing in their communities through the Local Government Act. And so the proposed definition just means residential rental tenure in relation to a dwelling unit in a multifamily residential building or multiple dwelling, a tenancy governed by a tenancy agreement that complies with the Residential Tenancy Act. And this is a fairly standard definition that's being used by municipalities right now. And here's the proposed development. Again, you can see it just from the sky. There's some parking under the buildings. You have a building on each development, and it's on the corner. Some quick conceptual elevations that their architect put together for the application. In terms of analysis, we look at the official community plan and where what it says for things that council should consider when looking at designating new multifamily lands. And that's that it's in a highly walkable area, that it's near arterial roadways and collector streets, and that it's compatible with adjacent land uses. And when you look at the walkability of the area, the location of the site at the corner of 5th and Bird is actually within fairly short walking distance of two significant commercial areas. In fact, the property is within the walk sheds of the 3rd Avenue commercial area and the 10th Avenue and Redford commercial area. And these walk sheds are identified in Port Alberni's active transportation plan. It's also within fairly close walking distance to the Dry Creek Park lands, as well as the Gyro Park facilities. It's really close to arterial roadways. It's only, it's on Bird Street, which is actually a collector in the official community plan, and it's also close to 3rd Avenue, Redford, and 10th Avenue. And the idea with placing multifamily near arterial roadways is that it gives the residents who live there quick access to the transportation network and really prevents busy traffic and reduces impact on roads. But I think most importantly, the development of new multifamily lands has to be compatible with adjacent land use. And it's important to get a transition between this higher density development and then the lower density development it might be near. And as you can see with this application, the lands they're talking about designating as multifamily are right on the edge of that 3rd Avenue commercial area, as we call it. Right where the land transitions from commercial to 1 and 2 family residential. And here are the properties around the site. So directly to the north is the Alberni Valley Sobering Center run by the Alberni Shelter Society. And that's directly north of the north properties. And directly to the west of the southern parcels, surrounded by the yellow dashed line, is actually a house. And now the property the house sits on is designated commercial in the official community plan, and it's commercial in the OCP, but nevertheless, it is a residential home. So their designer has actually provided a view from the street to give you a sense of what this 3-story building would look like next to that house on Bird Street, and you can see it in the top image. And then you can also see on the bottom image what the other apartment building would look like within relation to the Alberni Valley Sobering Center. And they have provided an adequate transition between these uses in their design. So that space between the buildings provides enough of a transition that you can add landscaping and fencing and that sort of thing. The CD zone itself is based on the RM2 zone, and a comprehensive development zone is where you're creating a new zone for a specific development on a specific site. This is basically a one-off zone that would apply to these properties. And This zone features reduced setbacks on the front, side, and rear of the property, and this is really needed to fit the building on the site, but it's also being used to shift the location of the building around to create more space from the neighbors and create that transition. The zone features reduced parking at 1 stall per dwelling, but this development also has great street parking in the front and excellent laneway access. The zone is also designed to grant the developer more flexibility in terms of usable open space. It allows them to use space in the front yard as open space. And all balconies in the building do have, or sorry, all units in the building do have balconies, and they've also designed the buildings to have large common rooms and spaces. And the height of the development itself also does meet what we currently require for the RM2 zone. And the density itself of the development is positioned specifically between the RM2 zone and the RM3. So it's not any denser than we would permit on other developments in other areas of the city. So in terms of implications, for the OCP amendment, this would designate new lands of multifamily in an area where the uses are transitioning from commercial to single family and two-family residential. But this does align with OCP policy for multifamily housing. In terms of the zoning amendment, it will enable rental housing identified by the Housing Needs Report, and this is because the new CD zone will include conditions that these remain as rental units. This is the first time that this power would be used by the city in its zoning. And this would create that new CD zone, but we actually have no guidance in the OCP for when council considers the creation of new CD zones. But this is something that staff will be looking at and bringing forward for consideration during the OCP review. So staff's recommendation is that this application to amend the OCP and zoning bylaws be supported, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you so much. Are there questions or comments from council? Councillor Poon.
Just really pleased to see another good project to provide more rental housing in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Solda.
I guess my question would be, what is affordable? You know, like the rent out there is really expensive and a lot of people can't afford even $1,000 a month. So what are we terming as affordable? Affordable in Vancouver is something different than here, right? Or Victoria. So what is it for Port Alberni?
So, Madam Mayor, and that's an excellent question, actually, because often when we talk about affordable housing can actually be made affordable if the people who are developing and selling housing are compelled to sell it at a below market rate. That's what I would think of as real affordable housing. In this case, I put affordable in quotes in my report because it's affordable in that those units would be rented at the lower end of the rental market. They're all one bedroom, they're all bachelor, and the Housing Needs Report considers these to be more affordable units. Where we would see actual affordable housing, actually I'll just end it there, but there are ways in which we can encourage developers to enter into agreements with the city that create and maintain affordable housing at below market rates, but we have not done that here.
Okay, I just know a city planner that used to tell me what is affordable, Cindy.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And assuming we'll have an opportunity through the OCP to talk about those additional steps we could be taking around affordable housing. And I think we've been really successful over the last few years through a variety of partnerships and nonprofit organizations in our community who have been really moving forward with affordable and supportive housing. So I know we have, many units coming, but I think a lot more of a need still than what is coming, even with the success that's been had there. Any other comments or questions? Okay, seeing none. Councillor Corbeil, would you like to start reading these motions?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that official community plan amendment number 36, 5th Avenue and Bird Street, Carnato, bylaw number 5042, be now introduced and read a first time.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Solda. Seeing no additional comments, all in favor? Carried. Thank you.
And B, that zoning text amendment number T30, CD3, comprehensive development multifamily residential infill, Fifth Avenue and Bird Street, bylaw number 5043, be now introduced and read a first time.
Seconded by Councillor Solda. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried, none opposed.
And C, that zoning map amendment number 47, Fifth Avenue and Bird Street, Carniato, bylaw number 5044, be now introduced and read for a first time.
Seconded by Councillor Solda. Seeing no comments, all in favor? Carried, none opposed.
And D, that official community plan amendment number 36, Fifth Avenue and Bird Street, Carniato, bylaw number 5042, be read a second time.
Seconded by Councillor Solda. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried, none opposed.
E, that zoning text amendment number T30, CD3, comprehensive development, multifamily residential infill, Fifth Avenue and Bird Street, bylaw number 5043, be read a second time.
Second?
Seconded by Councillor Solda. Seeing no comments, all in favor? Carried, none opposed.
F, that zoning map amendment number 47, Fifth Avenue and Bird Street, Carniato, bylaw number 5044, be read a second time.
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Solda. Seeing no comments, all in, oh, was that a question? Pre-voting, okay. No comments, all in favor? Carried.
And
None
G,
opposed.
that as part of the development process, the applicant be required to complete the following before council proceeds with final adoption. 1, consolidate the subject properties into 2 parcels on either side of the laneway. And 2, submit an estimate in the amount required for completion of off-site works as determined by the city's engineering department.
Are they separate?
No,
Second.
they're together, yep. So seconded by Councillor Solda. Seeing no comments or questions on this, all in favor? Carried, none opposed.
And H, that the amendment bylaws number 5042, 5043, and 5044 be advanced to a public hearing on Tuesday, March 29th, 2022 at 6 p.m. in City Hall Council Chambers.
Second, Madam Mayor.
Seconded by Councillor Solda. All in favor? Carried, thank you. Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Corbeil. Moving on to item number 2 from the Development Planner, Proposed Official Community Plan Bylaw and Zoning Bylaw Amendments for 4440 Vimy Street.
All right, so this application is coming back to council for third reading. It's for an OCP and zoning bylaw amendment for 4440 Vimy Street. So this is the site where the project is being done in partnership between BC Housing and ACOS to develop second stage housing for women and children at risk or who have experienced violence. The proposal would require an amendment to the OCP, changing the designation of a portion of the property from parks and open space to institutional. The applicants are also looking to rezone the full property from P2 Parks and Recreation to P1 Institutional. A public hearing was held on January 25th. A copy of the minutes can be found in your agenda package. At the meeting, there were questions surrounding the public engagement process and the location of the development. It was noted that the engagement began 2 to 3 years prior, and the public hearing was the opportunity for affected parties to bring their concerns or feedback to council. And as for the location, an institutional use at 4440 Vimy Street is consistent with the surrounding neighborhood, which is mainly made up of properties zoned for institutional, parks and recreation, multifamily, and single-family residential use. The site is within walking distance of limited commercial services, as well as a variety of indoor and outdoor public recreational facilities. And residents will also have convenient access to public transportation. Should council proceed with third reading, we will be referring this application to the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure for their approval, and then following that, we can bring it back to council for potentially adoption. And the planning department supports proceeding with the amendments. The proposed development aligns with the objectives for community and housing in the OCP. And a change to the P1 institutional zone is consistent with surrounding neighborhood. So if you have any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments? Okay. Seeing none, Councillor Solda, would you like to read the motion?
I will be glad to move this motion. Madam Mayor, I move that the official community plan amendment number 35440 Vimy Street, BC Housing, ACOS, bylaw number 5036 be read a third time.
Thank you. Is there a seconder?
Second, Madam Mayor.
Seconded by Councillor Corbeil. Any comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. None opposed?
And B, Madam Mayor, I move that the zoning map amendment number 46440 Vimy Street, BC Housing, ACOS, bylaw number 5037 be read a third time.
Second, Madam Mayor.
Seconded by Councillor Corbeil. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. None opposed. Thank you. We'll move on to correspondence for action. We have one item, a letter dated February 9th, 2022 from the BC Farmers Markets reporting the results of the 2021 BC Farmers Markets Nutrition Coupon Program and requesting that the city send a thank you letter to Honorable Adrian Dix, Minister of Health. Councillor Solda.
Motion to concur with the request, Madam Mayor.
Great. Is there a seconder?
Second, Madam Mayor.
Seconded by Councillor Corbeil. Seeing no comments, all in favor? Carried. None opposed. And on to proclamations. We have one item here as well, an email dated February 13th, 2022 from the Vancouver Island Down Syndrome Society requesting that Council proclaim March 21st, 2022 as World Down Syndrome Day. Councillor Solda.
Motion to concur with the request.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Solda. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Corbeil. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. And on to correspondence for information. Twyla.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A number of items of correspondence to bring to Council's attention. You have communications from the BC Ombudsperson Office reporting out on the October 1st to December 31st quarterly report. Communication from the Village of Chase, and they're encouraging letters to support the BC wildfire and specifically federal provincial government to provide for better forest management. Letter from the Ministry of Public Safety and Solicitor General regarding the Vancouver Island Integrated Major Crime Unit expansion, and that is in response to a letter sent from City Council regarding inquiring about that initiative and cost implications. Communications from BC Senior Game Society regarding the potential to bid on upcoming 55+ BC Games. You heard from Mr. Miller earlier today at public participation, so this is his correspondence speaking to a recommendation to acknowledge Outstanding Citizen Award for Kathy, and I'm not going to pretend to try to pronounce her last name. Ministry of Jobs, Economic Recovery and Innovation regarding a stronger BC economic plan. A letter from the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure as it relates to the Beaver Creek and River Road intersection improvements. Communications from Mr. Fraser regarding questions regarding the city's financial plan process. Mr. Roland Smith asking questions regarding the financial planning process, and from Leslie Walerius regarding hybrid council meetings.
Thank you very much. Are there items councillors would like to speak to? Councillor Solda.
I believe, Madam Mayor, I'd like to bring up the letter regarding the Beaver Creek
Great.
Road improvements, Ministry of Transportation, and maybe you can enlighten us more because I'm sure you have more information on that. So I think this is great, fall of 2022 design work. So maybe I know they've been out there surveying because obviously I have a window right there. So,
yeah, thank you. This is a really exciting initiative because I think it's something that the community has been asking for improvements at that intersection for a long time. So this council began really formally making a request through myself and Councillor Paulson at the first UBCM that we attended. We really narrowed in, rather than going to the ministry that year with many requests, and narrowed in that Beaver Creek Road and River Road, as well as Lower Johnson Road pedestrian improvements, were the two areas of focus that the City of Port Alberni wanted from the Ministry of Transportation. We have since had really great progress on both initiatives, in my opinion, and I have asked Minister Osborne on several occasions to just express our thanks to the Ministry of Transportation for their working with us so consistently on this. At this point, on the Beaver Creek and River Road intersection, there has been survey work done, there's been preliminary plans done, and the next step, I believe, is to get the final plans done. Scott may be able to speak to that, and then I'm not sure what they're planning for public engagement. Scott, do you want to speak to that? Because I know there was a meeting a few days ago.
Certainly, Madam Mayor. So the ministry, as well as some consultants, have been working on what they call functional design, and have been consulting city staff as well as both First Nations and getting input on that functional design, as well as the Port Authority, who operates Clutha Marina. They do intend, I think, over the next month or two to begin engaging in a wider public information on what's being proposed, and then they will go into what they term as detailed construction design. In other words, to do the final design that they could then proceed with submitting their costing to the ministry for approval to actually build the improvement to that intersection.
And our hope is that they would submit that costing with approval for next year's provincial budget, and our expectation at this point is that it would be fully funded by the province. There hasn't been a request to the city to fund any of the work. And they've done quite a bit of work already, which is really exciting.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. When you watch people do U-E's to get out of the lineup, because there might be in the 6-car lineup to get onto River Road, and they do a U-E and other cars are coming down the road, it's pretty scary. And when you see the near misses that I have seen, and also trying to get out onto River Road takes quite a while, and it's another accident's waiting to happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Corbiel.
Yeah, a few letters I'd like to respond to along the same lines of the letter from Minister Fleming, and very appreciative of the fact that they're working on Beaver Creek and River Road. But in his letter, he actually says that he would love to talk in more detail about Cathedral Grove. And, this has been going on for literally decades through all kinds of different governments. Last Sunday, I drove through there, and it was already crazy. And as people get out into the outdoors more and more, it's only a matter of time until somebody gets seriously injured there. So, maybe we should, write a letter to Mr. Fleming and thank him very much for the work they're doing on Beaver Creek and River Road, but also just tell them how serious this Cathedral Grove parking issue is. A few other letters. Mr. Fraser asked about how many kilometers of pavement have been done in the last few years. I'm sure nobody has that at their fingertips, but I trust somebody will get back to him. But he also mentions the banner program, and I don't know what happened to that banner program. It just seems to have gone by the wayside, and maybe it was, somebody may know the answer, might have been run by a service club or something. Also, Mr. Smith has he's got 3 questions that, again, I hope somebody gets back to him. But Mr. Smith and Mrs. Walerius talk about, some sort of hybrid council meeting. And I don't know if that's even possible with the charter, but as, technology changes and we're putting some money into technology here in the council chambers, maybe we should be having a discussion on how the public can get engaged without actually having to physically come into the council chambers. And that, as I say, I don't even know if that's possible, but anyways, those are my concerns or points. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Corbiel. Hybrid meetings are possible, and council would need to amend our procedures bylaw, and I think that's something that we can direct coming to us for consideration. I think the intent was that we make sure that we have on order at least the equipment that we need to be able to facilitate those from a technology standpoint. So we've done that, and I think a natural next step is to consider what form of hybrid meetings we would like. The regional district is doing hybrid in some ways now, with part of their board being online and part of the board being in person. I think there's a lot of challenges that come with it functionally, but there's certainly opportunities for us to specifically have members of the public able to engage in different ways. So I think that'll be a natural consideration as we keep making the improvements to our council chambers. But I don't think we've given any formal direction to staff to review that procedures bylaw. Twyla?
Correct, Madam Mayor. Nothing formal at this point, but you did allude to the fact that council did just recently approve COVID funds, so we could move forward with purchasing some technical equipment that will improve the functionality in this room and allow us to even then offer hybrid council meetings. So yes, once that equipment arrives and is installed, that positions council to be in that spot, and then we would be simultaneously hopefully bringing forward procedure bylaw for council's consideration as to what extent of the hybrid version you would like to incorporate.
Thank you. And Councillor Corbeil just wanted to comment as well on your comment about Cathedral Grove. I think if we were going to write a letter expressing the importance from our community's perspective of improvements there, we would want to include the Ministry of Environment, because I know that the Ministry of Environment was a late addition to the conversation around Cathedral Grove improvements, and my understanding is that's the reason that they haven't proceeded yet, is just some additional work needing to be done there. So there's a conversation ongoing there at the province, which is great. And as well, the Ministry of Tourism. So rather than just the Ministry of Transportation, I think this issue spans more broadly than just the one ministry. So I think we would want to reach out to all three of them, and of course our MLA as well, and her new ministry, which is also very relevant on this topic. Other comments or questions? Councillor Solda.
Just a quick...
sorry, Twyla, did you want to comment?
I just wanted to add additional clarity for council that, and for Mr. Fraser and Mr. Smith, their questions will be placed on our ongoing Q&A summary and responses to those. So they will see that hopefully at the next agenda package that will have that information there.
Thank you very much. Councillor Solda.
Just to touch back on the hybrid meetings, I believe this is going to be a really good thing, because you got a lot of shut-ins that cannot come to City Hall, and I think this is a positive thing, and I would rather have council be here than have hybrid, but for folks that just can't make it here, perfect.
Yeah, I think it's really important that council be in the room whenever possible, and that we not make it too easy for councillors to attend from home. I think that we lose a lot of the functionality of the meeting when council doesn't attend in person. It's a great option for people who, need it based on health or other situations at the time, but not, I think, something to be used as a regular option. But great for members of the public, great for delegations as well. We often have delegations come from out of town who could be joining us virtually. Were there other hands that I've missed? Okay, I have a couple comments then. The first one on item C, for the Ministry of Public Safety and Solicitor General, on the topic of my meeting with the Vancouver Island Integrated Major Crime Unit expansion. This is something that I know has been of great interest to council. This is an opportunity for, and it's not an opportunity yet, but if it does come to be, it would be an opportunity for council to consider being a part of this Vancouver Island Major Crime Unit service, rather than having the constant worry that if there were a large incident, we've talked about if there was a major crime or a murder or something in the community, ending up with a very large bill as a result of it. So council does have our emergency reserve for the RCMP that we put RCMP surpluses into. If this were to come to be, the need for that emergency reserve would likely go away. So it would give us that certainty, but it would come with an ongoing cost each year. So it's something that council we're hoping be able to consider in the next year. It's something that we were given a shorter timeline, but we don't think that it's probably going to come in the next couple of months. But work is being done at a provincial level for this service to be able to be offered to municipalities on Vancouver Island. So I think something that would be of great value for us to be able to discuss, and I'm hoping to be able to have council see that soon. And then I just wanted to comment on the letter that we had for recommendation of Outstanding Citizen Award. The gentleman who came forward did mention the Citizen of the Year, and I think it's important to note that that council doesn't determine Citizen of the Year. It is the Rotary Club. And we don't have a formal mechanism right now. I think if nothing else, it would be wonderful to send a letter to Kathy, thanking her on behalf of council for her, years of business in this community. She has been a fantastic business leader, and really just, the face of this area of town for a long time as well. Her commitment, it deserves to be recognized. And then council may want to consider in the future, now we're in the future, establishing some kind of award or criteria that we could offer. But I think in the meantime, just sending a letter to Kathy would be well worth it. Councillor Solda.
Could I add to that, Madam Mayor?
Yeah.
What if we forward this over to the Rotary, as this was sent to us, and maybe you could take a look at it.
Yeah, we could certainly forward it to Rotary as well. Would we like to send a letter to Kathy thanking her for her years of service to the community and business?
I'll move that motion, Madam Mayor, that you made.
Second.
Okay. And we can forward it to Rotary as well. It's seconded by Councillor Poon. Any comments on this? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Councillor Paulson, did you have a comment?
I just wanted to talk about Kathy, and she's been a wonderful citizen of our community, and she's also been a great corporate citizen with involvement in the community. So if we had recognition for people that came forward, I think that's a good thing. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a Citizen of the Year.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Any other items to discuss from correspondence for information? Okay, then would somebody like to move receipt of our correspondence?
Move receipt.
Moved by
Second,
Councillor
Madam Mayor.
Poon, seconded by Councillor Corbeil. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. No report from in camera. On to council reports. Are there any items councillors would like to highlight today? Okay, seeing none. Any items of new business today? Seeing none. Question period. Would any members of the public like to come forward for a question? Come on forward, Neil.
Would the member of the public? I'd certainly like to see us encouraging more people coming here rather than the alternative ways of communication. And I think we can do more on that, but that's no question. Mayor, Minions and Council, I want to thank you for your comments acknowledging the Kingsway Issue Hotel. I was dealing with this for a couple of years now, and the credibility of my concerns were, in my opinion, never acknowledged, so your comments were appreciated. Now, I don't like using the word but, so however, these are issues that I brought forward for since February 2020, and they were both serious and legitimate issues. So my question is, that plus did the subsequent investigation by the city inspector, our current one, the McGill Engineering and Mr. Smith, the acting COA, in late 2021, collaborate my concerns regarding compliance issues and structural and subtrade issues. And I'm asking this because I felt like the silence that I got for a long time didn't even challenge the credibility of my question. So that just adds a little bit to what you said, that they either do or don't acknowledge that my issues at the beginning were credible and justified, and that's been acknowledged by the McGill, especially a credible engineering outfit.
Thank you. I'm not sure I could say necessarily that everything that you brought forward had been, validated. Sorry, but I think absolutely your general concerns were validated by the process that was undertaken at the end of 2021. just
Okay.
because I don't have your list of concerns in front of me, so I can't speak in that kind of detail.
No, but I agree with you. Now, this is not my, I've heard this mentioned, it may have been by a council member as well, but it's been brought to my attention by other people when we're doing the budget proposals, and it's nothing against Andrew and his presentations, I think they're done very, very well. But I can remember when I first came here, you used to invite the department heads, and they would stand at the podium, they'd make their presentations, and I was always enjoyed the fact that each individual council member had questions put to them. And I still think that is an excellent way of dealing with the budget. And I don't know if it's ever been a reconsideration to do it that way. As I say, no reflection on Andrew. It just seems to be the way you're directly putting these questions and concerns and whether this is necessary or not to the department head. I thought that was a great experience during the budget process. Have you considered, is there a reason why you decide not to do that? Find a question there somewhere.
It's a great question. I'm not sure, actually. We started doing it this way this last year. We followed a similar method than this year. I'm not sure if it wasn't a formal decision that was made. It was just a change in process and structure, but I'm not sure if there's...
I know it's more time consuming, but I think the public, I don't think I'm alone if I say that the public probably got a lot more out of the process and if the process was conducted in that manner. I certainly did.
Yeah, I think it actually really becomes like almost a mini city education rather than about the budget specifically, which has value. And we also could do that in other ways at different points of the year, additional to the budget. What I always found, and I enjoyed those, personally, I enjoyed those department sessions as well. I found I learned a lot about each department, not necessarily about their financial needs, but about the department in general and more about what they did. And certainly as a new counselor, that was very valuable.
Okay, and a question, if I may ask, it was brought up at the budget meeting. I didn't ask any questions, but again, I did a lot of listening, enjoyed that too. Am I wrong in saying that there's a legislation that's out there that means that you have to, it was based on whether you give projects to local companies and the issue of low bidder came in. Is there legislation that says you have to take the lower bid? Or new legislation? It never used to be that way. I may have misunderstood what was being said, but there was discussion about the low bid and that you can't just take someone because they're in town. But there isn't, I don't believe there is, but I could be wrong, that there's any legislation stating that you have to take a lower bid.
So I think this is a follow-up question from our Committee of the Whole meeting and the report on procurement that came forward. Not sure if, Andrew, we can answer that today or if we could bring it back to our next meeting with some more information.
I can give maybe a little bit of a general answer, and I'm sure Andrew can back me up further. Essentially, there are some trade agreements that are applicable to the city as well as others, and there are thresholds that underneath that, the trade agreements aren't applicable, but above that, the trade agreements are. And then Andrew can probably answer that better than I just did.
No, that's fine. The reason I raise it is because traditionally in the construction and the bidding process, it's the common saying is the low bid is not always the best bid, and depends on a number of issues, how the specs go out, how they comply with the specs, and how they may or may not reduce their costs. So I'm interested in knowing what the,
And Andrew, if you want to come forward.
Yeah, I can address that question.
Yeah, sure.
So, Madam Mayor, with a tender, the lowest qualified bidder would be the successful bidder. So we have that provision within our procurement policy right now that if it's within $1,000, that can go to the local bidder. So contract law requires that, in case law, requires that we provide it to the successful qualified bidder. So it's usually the lowest bidder when it comes to a tender. When it comes to an RFP, there's the ability to select criteria such as social procurement, benefits to the community, so other provisions. And when we select in an RFP, that allows us to have different qualifications and criteria rather than just lowest bidder. So the best selected candidate. So those are the differences between RFP and tender. But tender is case law based. So we do expose the city to risk if we do not accept the lowest qualified bidder.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that. And I think that, Neil, you raise a great question, and Andrew, it was interesting to me as well when that was said at our last meeting, so appreciate the follow-up. But I think this is exactly why we're reviewing that procurement policy and standardizing it across all departments of the city. So
Right.
thank you.
And my last one, just a clarification on the 400,000 that you've decided to spend on the policing there. What was the main issue that brought that, you explained fairly well, that brought that the deficit up by 400? What was the main issue that resulted in that 400,000?
Well, that was part of, or one of the things that we had. It wasn't one thing. It was across the board where every component of the renovation was higher. So it wasn't one particular item that was like, way above. So it was across the board. So that's, and we did look at and reduce some scope of that from the original project, but it was not one particular item of the renovation work. It was almost every item was higher than what we had anticipated.
So you're saying that basically the cost increases resulted in that. That's a lot of money.
It is.
Just even for cost increases. So anyway, I was just wanting clarification there, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Neil. Okay, assuming no other members of the public would like to ask a question, would somebody like to move adjournment? Moved by
Second.
Councillor Solda, seconded by Councillor Poon. All in favor? Carried. Thank you.